So my daughter said the other night she got the other night, and she had went down to the kitchen and baked a chocolate cake from scratch,
Wow.
which she does often. Just she said, "Why did you do?" I just felt like cooking, and it was delicious. But anyway,
Oh.
I threw that little plug in for my granddaughters. Her name is Zyla Ray. Zyla Ray. She does a great job. Anyway, this morning I am excited to have in with me. I think the first time in with us here, Susan Cornigat. And Susan is the Democrat candidate for county executive in Atlantic County, and we are certainly happy to have you and welcome you to Bishop John and Gandy Live.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. I want to get you to move over your seat over this way a little bit, Susan. Yeah, that'll be good. So center yourself in the camera. But anyway, so you have you're running for of course for county executive. But before we get to talking about that, I want to know and want you to give you an opportunity to introduce to my listeners yourself. Some things about Susan Corngut. I've heard about you many times, but maybe there's some listeners today who don't know who you are. So take a moment and just introduce yourself.
Thank you. Well, I hope that's a good thing that you've heard about me many times. And I'll do my best because now you've got me thinking about the Bake Geek. So I'm going to my mouth is watering for this entire interview. um, well, I was born in Atlantic City and grew up in Margate and lived in Atlantic County all my life except for when I went away to college and law school. So I graduated the American University cum laude in Washington, D.C., and shortly thereafter graduated the Dickinson School of Law in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. But like I said, I came back here because Atlantic County is my home, and been a practicing attorney for more than 20 years now. Built my own practice, and I can tell you that when you're 20-something and you say that you're going to start your own law practice and you're going to leave a firm, you get used to people looking at you sideways, including my mother. Why would you leave a job with the best law firm? You know? But I say many of my greatest accomplishments came right after someone told me it could not be done.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So you're presently your business is in Northfield, right?
Yes.
And what is your area of law?
Family law.
Family law. Okay. Very good. So Susan, I am excited to let folk know that you are running for county executive. Atlantic County is, by some folks' estimations, is one of the better run counties in the state. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Well, I wouldn't be running if I agreed with
All
that.
is well.
I think yes, exactly. I think that it is running well for some people, but I think there are a lot of people who are not being seen and not being heard.
Right. I agree. So what are some of the areas of concern that you might have in that it is not running well? Well, before we say that, you said that you agree that it's running well for some people. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that, like I said, there are people who are not being seen, not being heard by our county government. I think it's easy for some people in some zip codes who say, look, I look outside my window and I don't see any homeless people, so what's the problem? If I lived in a bubble, I'd live in Northfield, and I love my community, and I've lived there since I got back from law school over 20 years ago. So I think if you didn't get out and about and didn't see what was going on in the rest of your community, that you could think, well, everything's going great. But just because it's going great for you doesn't mean it's going great for everybody.
Okay. So, and what exactly? Can you be more specific about that? What are some of the challenges that you compare it? How do you compare what's happening in Northfield versus what's happening perhaps in another town that you may feel they're not getting their fair share or things are not as great for them?
Well, I can tell you what made me say I'm in when I was thinking about running. When I heard about the rate that our babies are dying in Atlantic City, I said I'm in. And anybody who knows me or who has heard me speak before knows that bringing down the infant mortality rate in Atlantic City is a focal point of my platform, and I'm excited that Mrs. Murphy I've caught Mrs. Murphy's eye. As we know, she shares that passion, and I'm looking forward to getting to work with her, and she and I have already been doing some things behind the scenes and out in front of the camera too. Just recently, when she was here for the Family Festival, I'm honored that she asked me to speak.
So, in addressing the infant mortality rate issue, what are some of the factors that contribute to high infant mortality in communities that you're referencing?
Well, one of the big issues is transportation, just something as simple as being able to get to a doctor. I think when you have a car and you have money, you don't think about those things, but for some people, that can be an insurmountable obstacle.
Hmm.
So, one of the things I'm excited to get to work on that I think is an easy fix is having a mobile van to provide OBGYN services. Another big issue is that for women of color, I think your listeners probably know that even when we go to the doctor, when they go to the doctor, they're not listened to.
Hmm.
Um, and so I will have a liaison in the for the in the hospitals for just like with the patient's bill of rights that every
Hmm.
woman has the right to speak with the liaison and also hold these providers accountable for repeat offenders, people who aren't correcting their mistakes. And let me make one thing clear, because in the platform, it's easy to talk about the providers and what they're doing, what they're not doing. As we all know, there are plenty of medical providers who are amazing. And they're out there every day doing the work and they care long after business hours. So this is something we plan to do with medical providers, not to them. So.
Um, and so transportation is one issue. Any other contributing factors? Because what I'm
Right.
trying
So,
to get to is, what are the okay, we know that there's an issue with infant mortality. But what are the factors that contribute to it, and what can be done to hone in on those factors and correct it?
right. So, like I said, transportation, we've got a mobile van. Number two, the fact that women of color are not listened to once they're at the doctor. For that, like I said, we have a liaison that they would have a right to speak with. Um, Accessibility to healthy food options. Uh, so, as we know, a supermarket is coming
Right. So
to Atlantic City, so
okay.
that should certainly help. Um, and there's a great organization called Crops that has farmers markets all over the place. We need more of that. I think there's no reason we can't find a building to have to totally change the face of how we eat around here and have something like in Philly, we have the Reading Terminal Market,
Mm-hmm.
and we can have these people all year round, so we're not dependent. We can have this food all year round, so we're not just
Mm-hmm.
dependent on farmers markets on the seasonality of it.
Sure. Sure.
So healthy food options, a media campaign to enforce the importance of healthy eating, treatment. One of the seminars I went to talked about how the health of a mother starts long before she's pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
So
these
is that done through the schools? Is that done through some other private entities? How do you address some of those issues? Because we know that, I mean, this is not unique to Atlantic City or Atlantic
right.
County. These are unfortunately are systemic kinds of issues, and you can go anywhere in the country. A city that looks like Atlantic City has the same issues. Most of them are food deserts where you can't find food, real good nutritious food in most of these places, and there's a reason why that doesn't happen. How do we make that happen? And is it the schools? Is it getting private investors? Does the state intervene? How does that happen? Like Atlantic City, for instance, we know we have a supermarket coming, but we have to almost pay the supermarket to be here. We have to subsidize the supermarket to come to Atlantic City. So they're almost have to be guaranteed a profit before they open their doors. How do we kind of get past some of
In
this?
answer to your question, yes, yes, and yes. I'll be reaching out all over. I don't just think it falls on the county. I
Mm-hmm.
think we do what we can, but it's my job as county executive to reach out. Of course, like I said, working with medical providers, it behooves them. They want to do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Private investors, whatever we can do. The sheriff with his Hope One van uh, had to look into doing that, look into his own budget, um, raise some capital.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it definitely can be done. Also, we need to increase the presence of doulas. We know that they're helpful, and the state has a program, a pilot program, where they're training doulas, and some Atlantic City will benefit
Can you
by having
explain
some of that.
doulas for those listening?
Yes. So doulas provide support to a mother throughout her labor and pregnancy. And just having that person there to help them gives them the guidance and, again, the support they need.
Okay.
So, not necessarily medically trained, but like I said, the state has a program now where they're training doulas. And sadly, because Atlantic City is so high in infant mortality, it's one of the cities that will benefit. So it's good and bad. It's good that will benefit, bad that we need to.
Qualify.
But we need tools right here, devoted to Atlantic County.
Yes.
Yeah.
My guest this morning is Susan Corngut. She is a candidate, Democrat candidate for county executive in Atlantic County, and we're really excited about her campaign. And the reason why I'm asking you some of these questions, Susan, to probe a little deeper, is because the issues that you were talking about addressing are very important issues. They're not easy to address and or correct, but they're very, very important. So I'm happy that you are taking them on. So the county executive, how does the county executive, the role of county executive, contribute to some of those issues? How does that work? First of all, for people listening, let's not assume everybody knows what the executive does, because that's one of those positions that nobody really knows what he does.
Right.
So why don't you
That's right.
explain what exactly are the responsibilities of the county executive?
Well, the county executive manages and supervises the county offices. The county executive is the chief officer of the executive branch. I always say with this question, I'm going to answer what a county executive should do, because I don't think it's being done. I think we work collaboratively with the Freeholder Board, where the Freeholder Board is the legislative branch. So they create the legislation. Right now, I think it's more of a dictatorship, and I'm not saying that against my opponent. I'm saying that just that we would be different in that regard, and that I would work collaboratively with them. I also am not somebody who you would often hear say that it's not my job. So I reach out to, even with the infant mortality issue, I'm the one who reached out to Mrs. Murphy, and I'm just glad that it caught her attention and that we're able to work together. So when somebody calls me, I'm on Northfield City Council now, as you probably know. When somebody calls me, I don't say, too bad, it's not a city issue, it's a county issue. Too bad, that's with the state. I'm going to get them in touch with the right person at the very least, if I can't fix it.
So the county executive, in putting, for instance, Atlantic City, where there's a need for infant mortality rate, as you referenced, the county executive getting involved in what may be, as you've said, some people may say local. That's kind of their responsibility or local responsibility. Why is it important that people understand that Susan Corngut must win this election if we're going to really have change in this area?
Well, because I think the people who are being neglected, I think it's obvious to them. I'm sorry, I'm confused by the question, because you said infant mortality, and then you said if we're going to have change. I think if something was going to be done, it would have been done by now. I mean, where babies are dying at 4 times the state average. So to come out now and say, here's everything we're going to do, I think you would have done it if you've been in office 20 years.
And Susan Corngut being elected, you're saying, I'm trying to put an urgency to it.
Right, I understand.
Right?
And that's why I'm saying I didn't know if you just meant the infant mortality piece or whatever. But because there are a lot of people in Atlantic County who are not being seen. Like I said, if you're that mom in Atlantic City, you know nothing's going to be done. We've been under the same administration for 20 years. So if it was a priority, then it would have been taken care of. And I'm not just putting this all on one person either, because this is a group effort and this is years of neglect. I look forward to getting to work on day one to turn that around. But there is no time to wait. If you're that mother, if you're that child who also is scared to play outside in Atlantic City because of gun violence, I'm the one who's got my boots on the ground. I'm the one who's out there. I work 24/7. My clients will tell you. The people of Northfield will tell you. We may not always agree, but they never doubt that I'm working for them. And I've got no other motive other than to fight for them.
Very good. And you are a fighter.
Thanks.
So let's take a quick break right here. We're going to come back and continue our conversation this morning with Susan Corngut. She is the Democrat candidate for a county executive in Atlantic County, and we're going to come back in about 2 minutes. Hang in there.
Hawks Janitorial Contractors Corp. was established in 1987 by husband and wife team William and Elaine Hawks. Our motto is a great job at a fair price. The Hawks team is skillful, customer-focused, delivering quality janitorial services that meet and exceed our clients' specific needs. Hawks Janitorial Contractors Corp., proud sponsors of Gospel 88.7 FM. For more information, 609-484-0452.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
When I grow up, I want to be a glass countertop in a new home.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's best birthday present.
When I grow up, I want to be a football stadium.
When I grow up, I want to be a warm fleece on a cold day.
When I grow up, I want to be a fancy backsplash.
I want to be a bike that races around the country.
I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
I want to be a rocking chair on a sunny skyscraper.
I want to be.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. A public service advertisement brought to you
You
by
are
Keep
listening
America
to
Beautiful
Christ
and the Ad
Centered,
Council.
community-focused, listener-supported gospel. 88.7 and 100.3 FM, Atlantic City WEHA. Don't forget to follow us on social media by searching We Have Gospel on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Find out more at www.wehavegospel.com.
And welcome back to Bishop John Gandy Live. Thank you for tuning in this morning. And in the studio with me this morning is Miss Susan Korngut. She is the Democrat candidate for Atlantic County Executive, and happy to have her here this morning. So, Susan, as I was mentioning to you during the break, there are maybe some people who have not heard of Susan Korngut. People who do know you know that you are a fighter. They know that you have been very, very active and very, very vocal in Northfield and other areas that you have served. But what do you say to people who don't know you and they're just hearing you for the first time, hearing your name for the first time, and they need to know that Susan Korngut is a fighter, has been out there fighting. She's not a flash in the pan. She's not going to be here today, and if she doesn't win, she's going to disappear tomorrow.
Oh, well, like I said, I've lived here all my life except for when I went away to school. So God knows I'm not going anywhere. And I can tell you, as shocking as this may be, that's not good news for all people. But not everybody thinks that's wonderful. But, so, yeah, I mean, when I opened my office, now it's been over 20 years. I had plenty of people say, you're not going to make it. And I can tell you, treating people fairly, fighting for them, being reasonable with them, not getting their hopes up, but has served me well. And to this day, I'm turning people away. And my campaign manager can speak to that because now those duties fall to her because we plan to win this thing. And as you know, it's a full-time job. Mm-hmm. So, and just I think every one of my clients can tell you, probably not everyone, you shouldn't say that, but but I'll tell you what every one of my clients could say, like I said, that I'm a fighter and that I'm giving them voice. So many people have come to me and said that they don't know what they should do, and to help guide them at one of the most difficult times in their lives, I do divorces, child custody, domestic violence, so getting people, both men and women, out of abusive relationships. I've been in plenty of fights with our backs up against the wall, and I have not gone anywhere. We don't run. We don't back down. I've made a career of standing up for the underdog, the bullied, the voiceless. I've taken that fight with me to Northfield City Council, and I'll take it with me as your county executive.
Absolutely. Well, one of the areas I was sharing with you on yesterday in the paper, I read that an article where you and your opponent, Denny Levinson, differ on one particular topic, and we talked about that a little bit. Talk about that a little bit, the challenge that you concerning the foreclosures, and you have an answer to address it as opposed to letting it just ride out.
Oh, absolutely. We need to get aggressive. I don't think there's anything that I've ever said, hey, we just need to let this play out. That's not my style. I take action. and I can give you a few examples of that. But with regard to the foreclosure plan, I'm really excited to have just recently released our action plan to address the foreclosure crisis. If it was working to just sit back and let it ride out and to just say, look, it's a symptom of something bigger that's going on, we wouldn't still be leading the state, among the leaders in the state when it comes to foreclosure. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to have more county involvement to make sure that our municipalities are more uniform with regard to the standards that we're holding banks to when it comes to taking care of these foreclosed properties. We want to make sure that people know about their right to mediation, thanks to the new laws that the governor's passed, and housing counseling to work out loan modifications, refinancing, because it's been shown when they can work it out that they're more likely to stick to that plan once they've received that counseling. So I think forming a bipartisan committee will help as well, that consists of local homeowners, local economists, real estate people. I think just having a committee that reports to the county executive and to the freeholder board that studies the housing market and gives recommendations when they meet quarterly, that'll help, because one thing I know is what I don't know. And so to get experts and to have people who are intelligent and putting them in place is important, so that we continue to grow and continue to adjust anything in our plan that needs to be adjusted.
Now, Denny's response to your, to your proposal that we address this, he says that that some of those things, or he said, literally, all of them are being done presently. I don't know if that's true, but that was his response.
Are you asking me if it's
Yeah.
true?
Yeah, is it true?
I've made it. I've done well so far with, I think, about a month to go of not saying anything negative about my opponent directly. I encourage people to check out my Facebook page. I encourage people to check out my website. And I don't like to say, that's not the truth. What I'm telling you is what we're doing is not working. I know the other side likes to say, oh, yep, oh, yeah, all being done. There's not one person in Atlanta County who has said to me, I've been contacted by this person, and, I know it's so easy for me to reach my lender because, it's absolutely what we're proposing is not being done.
Right. So okay, so that'll make a difference in folks' lives and make things a little bit better, because it is very devastating. Not only that, but even there are in all these towns, for instance, in Egg Harbor, I pastor in Egg Harbor City, and foreclosures have just been crazy, and there are too many houses that are just sitting in foreclosure and not being inhabited. And the other concern that I have is that, so this also in Atlantic City, for instance, this is an opportunity for people to come in and, they spend their money, they rehab and all that sort of thing, but it also displaces, unfortunately, the folk who live there for perhaps for generations, for years. They lose their homes, and they're being displaced, God knows where, and it's just not a pretty picture. So in addition to to just having folk come in and buy homes and do the rehabs, which is gentrifying the neighborhoods, which is not all bad, but
it is if you're that person who's getting kicked out.
If you're being kicked out,
Right.
I was going to say, if someone's coming in and they're investing money and making life more full, that's okay. But if they're coming in and they're displacing people who are vulnerable, that is not good.
Right. The goal is to keep people in their homes.
Absolutely.
There are people who've worked all their lives to pay off their mortgage only to be kicked out by taxes.
Taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There are people who ran into difficulty and had to take out a second mortgage.
Yeah.
So these people deserve to be able to stay in their homes if they can. I mean, we want people to have the opportunity to stay in their homes, and everything we want to do in Atlanta County really starts with people feeling secure in their homes. That's a very basic right, I think.
Very good. So your thoughts on Atlantic County? Your thoughts on Atlantic County's future? Atlantic County in 5 years.
We have a chance now to change the entire economic paradigm of Atlanta County. For too long, we've relied on casinos. For too long, we've relied on the same old politics as usual to get us where we want to go. And it's just not going to, it hasn't worked, and it's not going to work in the future. it's a fact that they're going to be in 2021, 3.5 million cybersecurity jobs available, and there's no reason we can't make Atlanta County a hub for these jobs, for the training, people to get this training. There's interest in the aviation field, from the defense field, and we can grab hold of that.
There have been efforts to do that, I think, but I don't know why it's not taking off.
It requires somebody who's committed. It requires somebody who's dedicated. It requires someone who knows how to work 24/7. Somebody who's going to get on a plane, spend their own money, and go meet with the right people. And it just requires a commitment. Additionally, we can make Atlanta County more tech friendly, friendly for these tech companies, startup companies, and these cybersecurity firms to come here. We can take some of these old casinos and offer incentives for these companies to repurpose them with an eye towards green initiatives like solar panels. And we can use the infrastructure of the past to build a more sustainable future for Atlantic City and all of Atlanta County. But it's not just the economic paradigm. I think people are sick of politics as usual. I think people are sick of politicians having other agendas other than simply working for the people who put them there. I literally have no other loyalty, no other motivation. I have a good life, and I miss my 2 rescued children, my 4-legged rescue children, dearly. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I'm fighting for the people of Atlanta County who need a voice.
But doing that, doesn't that mean that you have to negotiate with people, and this is how this all kind of happens.
Right.
I think people end up getting into some situations that where their commitments change because of whatever, I don't know. You thank God you're doing well, and you're not looking for a come up, right?
Yeah.
People cut deals to get a come up or whatever,
Right.
and hopefully you're doing well, and that wouldn't be, that kind of temptation would not be there for you.
Well,
But in
it-
order to get things done, you really need to have to build relationships with people.
Well, compromising is different than selling out,
Yeah.
is different than changing your motivation. Do you have to give some to get some? I understand, what we have to do to make deals, but there's a difference between that and now your loyalty is elsewhere. One time when I was in law school, second year, I applied for a job, and at this time, suffice it to say that I was far hungrier than I am now. So my second year of law school, I applied for this job with a family law attorney in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where I was going to school. And it was clear that the woman wanted someone who was going to stay in Pennsylvania, and she could hand her practice off to. She was an older woman, probably as old as I am now. And she seemed so much older at the time.
Well, you're young.
Thank you.
Because I'm
Thanks.
older.
Thanks. I'm 51, so your listeners don't have to Google me. I'll just save them the trouble. And so anyway, it was clear midway through the interview that she wanted somebody who was going to go the distance with her. And I told her the truth and told her that I did not have an intention of staying in Carlisle and that I was going to come back home to Atlanta County, New Jersey. And she was lovely about it, and we ended the interview. I got home. My mother called me and said, "How'd the interview go?" I told her the story, and she said, "Susan, I love you, but can you please have principals after your bills are paid?" So I've never been one to sell out. I'm certainly not going to start now.
Yeah. That's good to know. And I'm asking these questions because I want people to get a feel for, because you're right. You said something. People are just a little bit tired of politics as usual, hearing the same old rhetoric, and then not having a confidence that the person that you are putting your confidence in is going to, someone you can really, really depend on.
I'm also going to say when I don't know. I'm going to tell you the efforts we've made. I'm going to tell you if we fall short. I'm going to tell you, why did you do that? Why did you vote, like now when I'm on council, why did you vote that way? I'll say, look, I did that because of this. I'm very honest about it. I have nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said to me, is council a lot of work? And I said, it is if you do it correctly.
This is true.
Yeah.
If you think for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you said Atlantic City in 5 years, Atlantic County in 5 years, we can cybersecurity and that sort of thing happening. Atlantic. So what kind of other industries might we be able to attract? Because this is a face it, a resort area. We're kind of off on a little bit of a corner of the earth here, and there's not a lot of things that pass through. You have to be coming to Atlantic County to come to Atlantic County. So how do we attract other industry? Because are there infrastructure issues? We do have the airport, but are there other infrastructure issues or transportation issues, access issues that make this area not really feasible for certain kinds of industries? Are we looking for something that's not going to happen at all? Just not going to happen because it's not feasible.
Like I said, I've never been. I've never been one to accept what's feasible, what's not. There are ways. My dad used to say, just get to work and stop worrying about what's possible. So, but, I also plan to continue to build on the research park. My opponent likes to talk about the research park, and no one is knocking the research park. It's not that all of a sudden now we just say, no, forget it, that's horrible. Of course that's good for Atlantic County. But the question is, what else? What's next? What's more? Another industry that we're excited to get to work on is we're going to partner with the Virgin Islands and bring competitive water sports here during the summer months and go there during the winter months. So to promote cross tourism between us. So we're looking forward to that. So there are plenty of ideas, and I don't expect anyone to think that I have them all.
Right.
So I get some of my best ideas when I am talking to other people. And one, for example, that I'm really proud of is I was at an event. One of the first events that I went to was an event in Atlantic City that was sponsored by a wonderful organization called In My Care Mentoring. And if you've heard of that, I'm sure. And it was for girls who were about 8 to 11 years old. And they were running for office, mock election. And every single girl had to give a campaign speech, and every single one spoke of gun violence in their neighborhoods, that they were scared to play outside. And one of the kids, so 9, 10 years old, said, I wish there was a way we could report gun violence anonymously. She didn't use the word anonymously. But in any event, a light bulb went off because I know we have something like that in Northfield. Long story short, I got on the phone with the superintendent of Northfield. It's an app. The cost is minimal. Insurance covers it. I said, we're going to put that app on every kid's phone in Atlantic County. And I'm excited about that, not because I think I've solved gun violence, but because, like I said, that was one of the first events that I went to. And I'd like to say, we had been campaigning for 5 minutes when that presented itself, when we could do that. Imagine what we could do with 4 years.
That's big. That's nothing small.
And it shows you where an idea can come from anywhere. Here's a kid 9, 10 years old. You just have to listen. People know what's going on.
Sure. You didn't mention. I mentioned about other types of industries or whatever. But there's one thing that I think see happening in all over the place. Wherever there is burgeoning communities and they're growing and developing, it seems to be hospitals, universities, and that kind of thing happening. That is the kind of the driving force in our economy today. And I don't know that there's much more. Just getting old and sick. I mean, but hospitals, universities, is that kind of something that could happen here that could perhaps change or add to our economic base?
Oh, of course. Healthcare is one of our leading industries here. So I look forward to expanding that as well. And again, it's not all me. This is going to be a team effort, and I expect the people to get involved, and I hope people are more excited than ever to come to us with ideas, to be responsive when we reach out.
So and of course, it's not putting responsibility on you, of course, but just as the county executive, as the leader of the executive team in the county, just the ideas come from you, and that kind of thing would come from you. So that's great. I'm talking to Susan Korngut this morning. She is the Democrat candidate for county executive in Atlantic County here in New Jersey, and we're excited about her candidacy. Kristen, you said that you were familiar with Susan. You had her at an event at your church, I believe. You have a question, or you want to?
No, she pretty much answered all my questions. But
Sorry,
we actually didn't get to interact much because she had another meeting. But I didn't realize that infant mortality was a big thing, a big part of your campaign. So I'm actually pretty excited because what we do at AHART is, as of right now, because we experienced some difficulties, and that was another thing that you were saying. People don't think about transportation and things like that. If you're not a mother there, or you're not, closely connected to somebody who's about to give birth or something like that, that's just not. Infant mortality is just not it's not at the forefront, and yeah, what we're seeing in not just the fact of a 50% rate, like like you have a 50% chance of carrying a child full term in Atlanta County.
Are you
That's
kidding me?
that's it's pretty high.
Wow.
You know, one of the things also when you talk about transportation, another reason why there's such a necessity for the mobile unit isn't just transportation, but it's also time. When you're that mother living in a second floor walk up with a child already, and maybe you're working two jobs, and you know, then you have to think too, when is her time to just, if you're heading to Galloway, if or to head to the clinic, like it's just not feasible. So I think also today in politics, there's a lot of, if it's not happening to me, I don't see it, I don't care. And it's not until something happens to you that people start to care about it. So I hope that it'll be evident that I'm going to be the county executive for all the people, whether it's happening to me or not. It's important.
Now,
It's happening in Atlanta County.
Can I ask you what was your aha moment that this became something that you thought about? Did you have an encounter, or were you just going down the gambit of things that were
No,
an issue?
when I was deciding whether or not to run, and I was just doing research on what's going on in Atlanta County, because to be honest, I work, I go to my council meetings, and so as far as looking into what's going on in Atlanta County, I mean, do I know that people are struggling? Of course, but in terms of the extent of it, when I heard the rate of infant mortality, I didn't need a personal experience.
Right.
I mean, if you're a human being, that's
Right.
got to rip at the core of your being that would happen in your neighborhood. When I hear that these kids are scared to go to school, I mean, I admit in Northfield, when you're thinking of gun violence, you're thinking Parkland. I know kids are scared to be in school in that regard, but for these kids in Atlantic City who are giving their campaign speeches, the fact that this is just miles away and that this is their life on a daily basis, I think you have to be a robot to not
Right.
care. Everything's an aha moment of, oh my gosh, I have to jump in and get involved. Yeah.
Well, are there other issues what other issues that you feel are important and you're running your campaign on?
Well, the sex trafficking rate, I feel like, is connected to our efforts for the cybersecurity to help attack that. And again, it shows you where my priorities are when it comes to the kids, the senior citizens. Housing is definitely an issue. I think senior citizens are often neglected when we're talking about what's going on politically. And in Northfield,
That's ironic because they are some of the most dependable voters, right?
right? And really, just when I was in Northfield, knocking on doors and talking to people, the seniors really struck me as far as talking about how, like I said before, work all their lives to stay in their homes. So when I'm voting against a tax increase, they're the ones who are foremost in my mind. They have monthly meetings in Northfield, and I am the only council person other than the councilman who it's his responsibility to set up the meetings. I'm the only council person who attends every single senior citizen meeting monthly. And it's funny because last year we had a new couple come to the meeting. They weren't the regulars. And they said, "Can I ask you something?" And they said, "If you're not running for anything, well, and you're already a council person, why are you here?" And I thought, for one thing, that's so sad, the state of politics, that it would be so outrageous that I would do what for me is just I perceive as doing my job, which is coming here. But also I said, I said, there's more than one reason. Number one, I had promised I'm not going to be the kind of person who just comes around during election time. I'm going to be in your face all the time, and I'm keeping that promise. Number two, how else do I know what's going on with the senior citizens unless I'm here, and how else do you keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on, unless you're talking to them? And thirdly, I said, I hope they would agree that now many of them are my friends. Many were at my 50th birthday party last year. So I think that's, again, just indicative of what we come to accept of our politicians. These people were so confused as to why I would be there.
Yeah.
I would hope
Baffling.
I would hope we'd get to a point where we're confused when our politicians would not be there, would not be at our events. When I'm showing up at events and people say, you're coming to events that politicians don't go to, there shouldn't be that sort of distinction. Just because there's not a camera in your face, you show up because I work for you, because this is the job right now that I'm applying for, because these are important, and I've noticed that showing up is half the game.
Showing up is half the game. That's exactly right. And you have been quite visible. You've been all over the county. Been I hear that you are at a lot of events, and I hear your name coming out of some people's mouths who I don't expect to hear any politician's name come out of.
Thanks. Good.
And that's a good thing. So we want to thank you for doing that. Susan Corngut is my guest this morning. She is the Democrat candidate for county executive here in Atlantic County. And Susan, what should people know about voting for you? Where you want to be on the ballot, or is that yet determined?
Column A.
Column
A, November 5th.
November 5th, column A. And if people want to, you're turning folk away, I know that, but if they want to in some way get involved with your campaign.
Oh, no. I'm not turning people away in the campaign. I'm turning people away from my law practice because I'm
okay.
planning, we're planning to win. And so, yes, I definitely am
help,
welcoming
right?
people
Yes.
to Team Corngut. Yes, my
Okay.
campaign
I'm glad
manager.
we got
shaking.
that clear.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if they want to participate or help and support your campaign, what can they do? How can they reach you?
They can give us a call. I'm going to give my number. My campaign manager's shaking now. Okay, 609-200-1604, or you can go to corngutforcountyexecutive.com, and you'll see ways to get involved on the website. And you can also learn a little more about what I'm about, my platform.
Yeah, very good. So so I'm sure, particularly with the major issue, which is the infant mortality issue that you've embraced. I know that's something that resonates with women, I'm sure. And as Kristen pointed out, I think rightfully so, may not so much so with men as quickly, but it's so. But when we hear it, we realize that, oh, okay, this is something that is a real concern. So I'm glad that you're pointing that out.
I hope that it resonates. I would hope that it resonates with everybody. I mean, I would hope that these things are universal.
Absolutely.
When
Absolutely.
if we can't have access to health care, if we have in our own backyard, if health care is an issue, then that's a problem. I want people to say she's the kind of leader who's going to jump on board and do something. She's the kind of leader who's going to listen, who's going to show up. We had something come up on council where there was an issue where they wanted to extend the hours of City Hall. And right now, City Hall has to be there at a certain time, but they don't open till a half hour later. So people wanted them to open the whole time. So I delayed the vote and said, I want to wait until the next council meeting because I want to do some research. To me, that is the least of what you could do. That's how this works. You gain information and then make a decision. On its face, do I have an opinion as to whether or not City Hall should open? I don't know. I have to talk to people. I haven't had one person come up to me and say, I wish City Hall was open for longer. So what did I do? I went around and talked to every single employee at City Hall and said, what do you think? And without exception, they said that, look, we'll do whatever you say. We're here anyway. But every single woman mentioned a safety issue because they're walking through the halls with their bank and they get to count their money. And additionally, and the men said, look, we get to answer our emails. We get to take care of things during that half hour. So the safety issue and seeing that our City Hall seems to be working, people seem to be happy. I put it out on Facebook. Nobody contacted me and said, yes, extend the hours. So I reported back, and City Hall stayed as we have it. And I can tell you, I took flack for that. I took flack from members of council who were aggravated and I guess just wanted it for whatever reasons. And to me, that's just doing my job. And I think that gives you an idea also what kind of leader I'll be. I'm not just making these decisions for the heck of it. I'm going to look into it. And even if we don't agree, like I said, you're going to see that I've done my homework and that our motives are in the right place. And I'm always doing what I think is best for the people.
Very good. Again, Susan Corngut is my guest. She's looking for your vote for the Democrat county executive candidate. She's looking for your vote for that position. And also looking for you to, if you would like to give support to her campaign, she certainly would welcome that as well. You can reach her. You can go to her website or Facebook, or there are many ways to just kind of touch base and connect with her and get involved. So any other issues that are major concerns or on your platform?
Just in general, I think that the face of county government needs to reflect more of what our county looks like. And I think we just look better when we look better, we function better, and it's better for all of us when everybody has a seat at the table. So it's going to be a priority of mine to make sure that our county government is representative of the people who we represent.
That's good. Fair enough. Fair enough. So let's take a quick break right here. We're going to come back, continue our conversation with, and wrap up our conversation with Miss Susan Corngut. Back in about 2 minutes. Hang in there.
Do you have an event coming up and need a facility? Well, let me tell you about Atlantic County's newest banquet facility, Beacon Hall, located in the heart of Egg Harbor City, right off the Whitehorse Pike. Beacon Hall is a full-service banquet facility that is 5,000 square feet with an attached parking lot. Book your conferences, book signings, birthday parties, bridal showers, baby showers, weddings, repasts. No event is too big or too small. You can book your next event by calling us at 609-965-4255 or email us at bookbeaconhall@gmail.com. That's BOOKBEACONHALL @gmail.com. Try Beacon Hall, where we turn moments into cherished memories.
You are listening to Christ-centered, community-focused, listener-supported gospel. 88.7 and 100.3 FM, Atlantic City WEHA. Don't forget to follow us on social media by searching We Have Gospel on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Find out more at www.wehavegospel.com.
And welcome back to Bishop John Gandy Live. Listen, just by way of some future upcoming guests and events, I'm going to have with us, well, maybe I shouldn't announce that yet.
I don't know if you want to announce it.
Maybe I should not announce that yet. But I'll say this, though. We've had, and Susan, I don't, you can comment on this if you like. We've had on some representatives talking about the schools of Pleasantville school system and AppSeeking issue, and Jerome Page and Craig Calloway both have been guests, and it's been great. I think it's been very, very good dialogue, and for those, I got a lot of folk inquiring about that as well. So let me just say that where we left off at is they were going to have a conversation between them, and hopefully they can come to some agreement as to their differences and figure it out. Is that likely in the campaign? I don't know. But that's the plan. And hopefully that will it'll unfold that way. And at the end of the day, they may not agree, but the point is, after the election and the campaign, if they can, not just them, but all candidates, at the end of the campaign, if the campaign can end and folk can then begin to put their efforts behind, all their energies and efforts and resources behind trying to improve, make the school systems better, make our cities better, our counties, our state better. If we can get to that point, that'll be a move in the right direction. So just an update on that, and I may have one or both of them on soon in the near future to kind of hopefully give that report. So that's something that's very exciting. Susan Corngut, and we have got about 5 minutes left, Susan, and anything else? Now I can ask questions.
Yes, good.
But
that's why we're here.
Yeah, but I want to know. I want to give you an opportunity too to say what you want to say to people who haven't heard you before, so they can just get a good feel for you. I don't want to necessarily, have just my issues. I've got issues.
Yes. Okay. So,
my issues might not be maybe.
do you want to talk about your issues, or that's another show?
Another show. Believe me.
Well, some of you may remember me from being a punky kid running around Margate, New Jersey. I don't know, but as you said, I can't imagine that anybody would think that I'm here 1 minute, gone the next. This is my home. I've been here forever. I grew up in an interesting household where even though my father, he was a local businessman, a successful businessman, And even though he died when I was just a kid, he managed to instill in me, Susan, all you have in this world is your name. My dad did business on a handshake, and he would have cut off his arm before he would have stiffed his vendors, not paid someone who had done work for him, broken his word. He would have done anything to have kept his
He
word.
wasn't trying to be president, was he?
Exactly.
Go ahead, I'm
There would
sorry.
have been no greater shame. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I decided to get involved in politics in the first place, why I decided to run for city council, because we had heard the term successful businessman thrown around a lot. And I took that personally. In my house, that meant something so different than it does today. And I was so disheartened at the direction that politics was going. Just in terms of the rhetoric, in terms of having no consequences for not telling the truth. You know, if I don't tell the truth, I would be disbarred. I will lose my livelihood. Not to mention, my dad would have spanked me as a kid. So telling the truth was a big deal and continues to be a big deal. So I really was disheartened with the way that our politics was going. And I can tell you that in my council race, my opponent never said anything about me, and we kept it to the issues. And he couldn't be lovelier, and I hope that he considers me a friend, because I consider him a friend, and I'm proud of the work that we've done on council. One of the things that on council that just, again, to give you an idea of the kind of person I am, I'm sure you know by now that we have a law now that requires hotel owners to provide housekeeping staff with a panic button. And I drafted the resolution in support of that, and I received some pushback about it, believe it or not. But it was important to me to support that because
Who would object
this
to
is
that? The criminals?
well, what exactly? Because it's politics, and because they didn't think of it, and because we don't have the same letter after our name. We don't, whether there's a D or an R. If there's a good idea for Northfield, if you're annoying me, it doesn't matter. If it's a good idea for Northfield, that's all that I care about. So here it was, well, I don't know. We don't have hotels in Northfield. Why is this relevant? And people got up and spoke about how they worked in the hotel industry and how once that door closes, you don't know what's going to happen. And the reason why this was important for me to put up was because frequently housekeeping staff is female. Frequently, perhaps they may not speak the language, but they certainly don't have a lot of power in the employer-employee dynamic. And so to speak up and give voice to these employees was important. And I'm sure that resonated with Local 54 when they gave me their endorsement. And I can tell you, when I ran for city council, my only goal was to serve the people of Northfield, and now my only goal is to serve the people of Atlanta County. So, the people of Northfield can tell you, they can call me anytime at my office. I will return their calls. I will point them in the right direction if I can't physically do something for them. Speaking of physically do something for them, one of the things we did in Northfield also that I'm very proud of is shortly after the election, we had a snowstorm, and I noticed that a lot of the walks were not shoveled. And I immediately got to thinking about people with different abilities who maybe weren't able to shovel their walks, senior citizens who might not be able to shovel their walks. And same thing, I was told, don't bother doing this, you won't get volunteers. We've recruited a group of volunteers, mostly kids with some adults, who are so excited about the program. We connect them with senior citizens, and now they have free snow shoveling in Northfield. And it caught the eye of the sheriff, and he and I have had discussions. We're going to take that program countywide once I'm county executive. So I'm so excited about that. And again, why do I think that's important? Because I don't wait for people to call me. I'm going to notice the problem. I'm going to address it. There weren't senior citizens calling me saying, I wish somebody would shovel my walk for free. And plenty senior citizens try to give the kids money. And our only rule is you can't ask for money. You can take it if they require, but they don't have to. And I can tell you, it's been a lifeline for the seniors in Northfield. And like I said, we look forward to taking that countywide.
Well, that is excellent, and I think that first of all, it's a pleasure having you. It's a pleasure. It's also quite a pleasure to have someone running for office who did not spend 30 minutes or 60 minutes talking about just talking about their opponent in a negative way. And so
Thank you.
you have you've not done that, and you have done a great job of talking about the things that Susan Corngut can bring to the table, and I really appreciate that. I think our listeners appreciate that as well.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me, Bishop. Really, I so appreciate it.
Yeah, so we're happy to have you, and if you ever want to come back and share,
I'll just stay. You on for another hour? I got nothing but time now.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm not sure. You're a campaign manager over here. The phone is ringing, and
I have a little
someone's
thing called
she's snapping her
my
fingers.
clients would not appreciate. They're waiting for me to head back to the office, but
I'm
yes.
sure they are. But anyway, but thank you for coming in, and we wish you well.
Thank you so
All right.
much. Really.
Thank you for tuning in to Bishop John Gandy Live. Be back on next week. God bless. Have a great week.
Gospel 88.7 WEHA.